Commander Vexel shuffled down the shadowed hallway of the Zenthari research ship, the Celestial Seeker. His scales, once a vibrant blue, were now muted and dry from malnutrition. Emergency lights threw stark silhouettes as he headed for the main chamber to meet the last of his crew. It had been 3 full rotations since the engines died, stranding them in this desolate sector. For 3 rotations, they had broadcast distress calls. For 3 rotations, only static replied. Vexal stopped at the doorway. Within the chamber, 12 Zenthari were huddled on the deck. Only 12 remained from a crew that started at 30. The rest were lost in the blast or had perished from their wounds shortly after. The central room was their last refuge, a place to pool their dwindling heat and air as the vessel's functions failed around them. "Commander," Science Officer Nixara asked, her voice barely a whisper, "how long do we have?" Vexel didn't bother consulting the monitors. The figures were etched into his memory. 20 hours. Maybe not even that. A heavy silence filled the room. All goodbyes had been said, final testaments recorded. They had accepted their end. The Zenthari were a dignified race, and this crew represented their best scientists. They would meet their fate with honor. Vexal sat beside Dr. Krell, the ship's physician, who was watching over a feverish young technician. "What's her condition?" "Holding for now," Krell answered. "We're out of medication. I can only keep her comfortable." Vexel nodded, closing his inner eyelids in a sign of solemn respect. They'd understood from the start that rescue was a long shot. Their mission brought them far from any standard shipping lanes. Worse, recent skirmishes with the Krax Imperium meant Zenthari High Command had labeled this sector a no-go zone for any rescue attempt. They were abandoned. "I'm going to record one last log," Vexal declared, pushing himself to his feet. The others tracked him with listless eyes as he approached the command console, which sputtered to life on its last power reserves. Vexel pulled himself erect, resolved that his last official words would be worthy of his rank. "This is the final entry of Commander Vexel, Zenthari Science Vessel Celestial Seeker. Standard Galactic Calendar, Cycle 457. Our status is critical. Life support is projected to fail in less than 20 hours. We have received no answer to our distress calls. The crew has conducted themselves with exemplary courage, honoring the highest traditions of the Zenthari Science Corps." He hesitated, his 4-fingered hand suspended over the panel. Was there anything more to add? Any last insight for the archives should this ship ever be found? "I suspect our mission was compromised," he added, his voice dropping. "The damage to the engines, it wasn't random. It was too targeted to be a simple malfunction. I can't be certain who wanted our research silenced, but it must be connected to the artifacts we found." The truth is, a sharp burst of static from the comms system cut him off. Vexel went rigid. His auditory ridges picked up a sound they hadn't registered in cycles. A voice. "Zenthari vessel, this is Captain Alan Miller of the EAS Dauntless. We have your SOS. Hang on. We are en route to your location." The chamber instantly filled with commotion. Crew members who had been resigned to their fate minutes earlier were now scrambling to stand. Nixara shoved past Vexal to get to the console. "This is Science Officer Nixara of the Celestial Seeker. We copy, Dauntless. Our status is critical." "We read you, Celestial Seeker. We have a lock on your coordinates. Estimated time to arrival is 45 minutes. Can you last that long?" Vexal moved to the console. "This is Commander Vexal. Affirmative, Captain Miller. We will hold. We had lost hope of rescue." A brief silence followed, then the human voice returned. "We don't leave anyone behind. It's not what we do. Ready your crew for immediate evac. Our scans indicate your hull is failing in multiple locations." "Humans," Krell murmured, appearing at Vexal's elbow. This far from their space, Vexal felt the same shock. Humanity was new to the galactic stage, having only developed FTL travel less than 100 years prior. The Galactic Accord supposedly restricted them to their home sector, effectively on probation by the Galactic Council. But here they were, answering an SOS that Vexal's own people had pointedly ignored. "Get a sensor lock on that ship," Vexal commanded. A junior officer scrambled to the console. "Confirmed, sir," the officer said seconds later. "Signature matches Earth Alliance. They're closing fast." For the first time in cycles, Vexal felt something beyond despair. It was an unfamiliar, almost risky emotion. Hope. "Ready the crew for evac," he ordered. "Secure all research data. We take only what is essential. As the crew scrambled with newfound purpose, Vexel motioned Nixara over. The artifacts? Safe in my personal locker, she confirmed. The humans won't recognize them. Good, Vexel said. Until we understand who tried to murder us, we must be cautious about sharing our findings. 42 minutes later, the celestial seeker jolted as the human ship locked on with a docking clamp. Vexel waited by the airlock, his formal cloak now dirty and creased hanging from his shoulders. As the senior surviving officer, it was his duty by tradition to meet their saviors first. The hatch hissed open, and Vexel stood before a human. The being was shorter than a Zenthari with light skin and closely cropped dark hair. He had only 2 eyes, unlike Vexel's 4, and they were a striking blue reminiscent of Vexel's own scales before the ordeal. Commander Vexel, the human said, offering a hand and a gesture Vexel's briefings identified as a greeting. I'm Captain Alan Miller. Let's get your crew safe. Vexel touched his palm to the humans. Captain Miller, the Zenthari science fleet owes you a great debt. Miller gave a short smile, showing his teeth. We can skip the formalities for now. Our sensors read your core going unstable. We have to hurry. In the following 20 minutes, the human team evacuated the remaining Zenthari with practiced efficiency. Vexel observed with mounting admiration as the humans worked, carrying the weakest survivors and ministering to the wounded with a surprising grasp of Zenthari biology. As the last one to cross over, Vexel paused to look back at the celestial seeker. It had been his post for 15 years. Without these saviors, it would have been his grave. We'll debrief once everyone is stable, Miller said, guiding Vexel toward a medbay. But I have to know, what was your ship doing so deep in uncharted space? Vexel paused. This human had rescued his crew, but his own fears of sabotage urged caution. He owed them an answer, however. We were on a research mission, he said, choosing his words. Investigating spatial phenomena. We discovered anomalies. Miller's gaze sharpened. Anomalies that might make someone want to prevent your return? Vexel tensed. The human was sharp. That's possible. But it's a conversation for after my crew has been tended to. Miller nodded. Understood. Welcome to the Dauntless, Commander. You're safe here. As the medical crew started their work on the Zenthari, Vexel observed the humans. Abandoned by his own government, he was now being saved by a race his people dismissed as simplistic and impulsive. The cosmos, Vexel mused, had a dark sense of irony, but as he felt the outline of the artifact container beneath his cloak, he wondered if it might also have a sense of justice. Chief Engineer Catherine Reeves pushed sweat from her brow, navigating a tight access conduit on the Zenthari ship. In her 15 years with the Earth Alliance, she'd never seen anything like its design. It was a fusion of organic parts and crystalline tech that human engineers had only dreamed of. Status, Chief? Captain Miller's voice crackled in her ear. Catherine stopped, inspecting a node where crystal tubes fed into what looked like a pulsating membrane. It's incredible, Captain. Their tech is elegant, but I'm not sightseeing. She pressed on, trying not to touch anything vital. The celestial seeker was on its last legs, systems barely online. Her mission was to see if the ship was salvageable, or if they needed to grab anything critical before it died for good. 20 minutes later, Reeves climbed from the hatch onto the Dauntless, her uniform smeared with the blue-green coolant from the alien ship. Captain Miller and his first officer, Ryan Weber, were waiting. Report, Miller said, his expression serious. Catherine shook her head. It's bad, Captain. The damage is catastrophic. Their life support was hours from total failure, just like they said. She brought up a schematic of the Zenthari engines on her datapad. But this is the kicker. This was no accident. Weber moved in. What do you mean? The damage pattern, Catherine said, isolating several key points on the diagram. It's too specific. Critical junctions were hit. Components were fused in a way that screams directed energy. Somebody knew exactly how to cripple this ship and leave them stranded. Miller's face hardened. Sabotage. No question, Catherine agreed. And the culprit was an expert in Zenthari engineering. Miller and Weber shared a look. Repair time? Miller asked. If we had the parts? Weeks as it is. Not possible. Their FTL drive is slag, she paused. One more thing, Captain. I found hidden data cores stashed in the service tunnels. They weren't integrated into the ship's main network. Miller gave a slow nod. So our guests are keeping secrets. This stays between us. I'm going to have a talk with Commander Vexel. In the dauntless medbay, Dr. Olivia Hayes went from patient to patient, monitoring vitals and updating treatments for the Zenthari survivors. Her xenobiology specialty made her uniquely qualified, but this was still new territory. Their physiology is amazing, she noted to her aide. Look at this tissue regeneration rate. The Zenthari physician, Krell, observed her with his 4 multifaceted eyes, taking in every detail. You are very familiar with our biology, Dr. Hayes, Olivia offered a smile. I read the journals in med school. But theory is one thing, practical application is another. But you saved technician Mira, Krell stated. She would have perished without your help. Your people are resilient, Olivia countered. Surviving 3 cycles on emergency life support is incredible. Krell stepped nearer, his voice low. If I may ask, what was your vessel doing in this sector? You are a long way from human-controlled space. Olivia paused, knowing the Dauntless's mission was classified. I'm sure Captain Miller would be glad to speak with your commander about that. As if on cue, Miller walked into the medbay, his presence immediately filling the room. Dr. Hayes, what's the status of our guests? Improving, Captain. Their natural healing is kicking in now that they have proper nutrients and atmosphere. Excellent, Miller said. Is Commander Vexel clear for a discussion? I am here, Captain, Vexel said, pushing himself upright on a nearby biobed. He was still frail, but looked significantly better than he had hours ago. His scales were already regaining some of their sheen. Doctor, may we have a moment? Miller requested. Olivia nodded. Certainly. He's stable, but try not to exhaust him. Once the medical team was out of earshot, Miller sat next to Vexel's bed. Commander, my chief engineer inspected your vessel. She's certain it was sabotage. Vexel's inner eyelids fluttered, a Zenthari sign of agitation. I feared so, but I couldn't prove it. Do you know who might be responsible? Or what their motive was? The Zenthari commander remained quiet for several seconds. Captain Miller, you saved my crew. I want to be transparent. But first I must know, why was your ship here? This is far outside your territory. Miller weighed his options. The Dauntless was on a classified recon mission, charting new expansion routes outside of Earth Alliance space. Finding the Zenthari was a fluke. A routine sensor scan had picked up the faint distress call. We're charting new territory, Miller answered. The Earth Alliance is interested in new trade routes, independent of Galactic Council oversight. Vexel's voice was neutral, just curious. Miller gave a slight grin. You could say we find it easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. This answer seemed to resonate with the Zenthari. Then we may share more in common than I realized. He checked to make sure no one was listening. Our own mission was not fully sanctioned by my government. Explain. Our official directive was to research spatial anomalies in this quadrant. But we found something unexpected. Traces of ancient technology vastly superior to anything the current council races have. Vexel's voice became a near whisper. Technology that has been actively hidden, Miller's brow furrowed. Hidden by who? The founding races of the Galactic Council. They've held their power for thousands of years by dictating which species gets to develop which technology. Vexel produced a small, crystalline device from under his tunic. This holds information that could destabilize the entire galactic power balance. Miller was about to reply when a klaxon sounded through the Dauntless. His comlink lit up. Captain, you're needed on the bridge, Weber's voice was tense. We have visitors. 3 vessels just exited FTL. Transponders are Zenthari military. Miller was on his feet instantly. A rescue party? Unlikely, sir. They're charging weapons. Vexel grabbed Miller's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. Captain, listen to me. If that is the Zenthari military, they are not here to save us. They are here to erase our mission, and that now includes your ship since you found us. Miller's eyes hardened. You're sure? My government left us for dead. Why send warships now at the exact moment we are found by humans? Vexel shoved the crystal device into Miller's hand. This cannot be recovered by them, no matter what. Miller pocketed the device without a glance. Nobody is dying on my watch. Not my crew, not yours. He tapped his comlink. Weber, declare battle stations. Get Security Chief Jackson to the bridge now. Dr. Hayes, prep your patients for high-G maneuvers. As Miller left the medbay, the weight of the crystal in his pocket felt heavy. The Zenthari secret was dangerous enough to kill for, and now it was his problem. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Security Officer Darius Jackson watched the tactical plot. 3 Zenthari battlecruisers had established a blockading formation, weapons hot. "They're hailing, Captain," reported Comm Officer Elena Martinez. Miller squared his shoulders. On screen, the main viewer lit up, revealing a Zenthari officer. His scales were a deep dark blue, adorned with the silver markings of a high-ranking commander. "Earth vessel," the Zenthari began, skipping all pleasantries. "This is Fleet Commander Zorax, Zenthari Defense Force. You are interfering in a restricted matter. Deactivate your systems and prepare to receive a boarding party." Miller advanced. "Fleet Commander, I am Captain Alan Miller of the EAS Dauntless. We picked up a distress call from the science ship Celestial Seeker. We have 12 survivors on board currently in medical." "That ship and its crew are Zenthari assets," Zorax retorted. "Their mission was classified. By interfering, you are in violation of galactic accords." Weber leaned in toward Miller. "Sir, they're tightening their formation. Looks like an attack run." Miller gave a slight nod, his eyes still on Zorax. "We operated under the Universal Distress Protocol, which takes precedence over sovereign borders. These survivors were hours from death. And now you will join them if you fail to comply," Zorax stated. "You have 5 minutes to shut down your engines. Prepare for boarding." The screen went black. "Give me options," Miller said to his bridge crew. Darius spoke first. "We're outgunned 3-1, Captain. We can't win a straight fight. Can we make a run for it?" Miller asked. Catherine Reeves, having just arrived from engineering, shook her head. "Not from all 3. They're pursuit vessels. We might beat one." "What about using the Celestial Seeker as a decoy?" Weber offered. Miller thought for a second. "No, I won't gamble with the lives we just rescued." He looked at Catherine. "What about that sensor ghost protocol you've been developing?" Her eyes lit up. "It's highly experimental, sir. We've never run it outside the sim. Time to take it live, Chief. Get it ready." Miller hit the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. I repeat, battle stations. This is not a drill." In medbay, Dr. Hayes was in triage mode. "Move all patients to the interior ward," she ordered her staff. "The outer hull is too exposed if weapons fire starts." Commander Vexel tried to get up. "Dr. Hayes, I must contact my government. I might be able to reason with Zorax." Olivia gently guided him back down. "Captain Miller is in command. Your only job right now is to stay alive. We didn't pull you from that wreck just to lose you now." Dr. Krell, the Zenthari physician, was assisting the human medics. "You won't reason with Zorax," he said softly. "He is a fanatic, loyal only to the Council's dictates." "The Council?" Olivia asked as she stabilized a Zenthari female on a gurney. "The Galactic Council," Krell elaborated. "The ruling body of this quadrant. I recall your species has minimal contact with them." "Seems like we had the right idea," Olivia murmured. On the bridge, Catherine's hands flew over her console. "Sensor Ghost Protocol is online, Captain. But it won't fool them for long. A few minutes, max." "It'll have to be enough," Miller said. "Helm, set course for the asteroid field." "Mark 227 on my command, full thrust, sir." "That course takes us right into the gas giant's gravity well," the helm officer warned. "Which is precisely why they won't follow," Miller retorted. He turned to Darius. "Prep a full spread of sensor decoys. Make them match our engine output exactly." Darius nodded. "Ready, sir." Miller glanced at the chronometer. 1 minute left. He inhaled deeply. "Execute now!" The Dauntless leaped forward, engines flaring to maximum. Simultaneously, Catherine engaged the Ghost Protocol, filling the Zenthari screens with false targets. "Weapons fire," Weber yelled as energy bolts flashed past the viewport. The ship shuddered from a glancing hit. "Status," Miller barked. "Shields at 82%, Catherine called out. "The protocol is effective." "They're targeting the ghosts." Darius launched the decoys, which shot off in multiple directions, all screaming a false Dauntless engine signature. "Entering the asteroid field," the helm officer reported, expertly navigating the tumbling rocks. The view screen filled with spinning debris. The Dauntless ducked and weaved, using the asteroids as cover. "Zenthari are in pursuit," Darius said, "but they've split their forces to chase the decoys." A faint smile touched Miller's lips. "Excellent. Keep heading for the gas giant. We'll use its radiation belt as cover to calculate our FTL jump." In medbay, the Zenthari patients were being thrown against their restraints by the violent maneuvers. Science Officer Nixara steadied herself, approaching Dr. Hayes. Your captain is choosing to flee rather than surrender, she noted. Captain Miller doesn't leave people behind, Olivia said, gripping a tray of hyposprays. That's not how we operate. Nixara's 4 eyes blinked slowly. Even against a superior force? Even for another species? Especially then, Olivia stated. That's us. The Dauntless rocked again as another shot connected with the shields. One of them is onto us, Darius yelled from the bridge. They've ignored the decoys and are right on our tail. Closing fast. Miller clenched his command chair. Time to the radiation belt? 30 seconds, Captain, the helm officer answered. Divert all non-essential power to engines, Miller ordered. And prep the emergency plasma vent. On my signal, Catherine shot him a worried look. Sir, that's a total power dump. We'll be on fumes for 10 minutes after. Better than being in their brig, Miller said. Stand by, Mark. The Dauntless ejected a massive plume of superheated plasma from its aft vents, just as it plunged into the gas giant's turbulent radiation belt. The Zenthari cruiser following them flew straight into the plasma cloud, its sensors instantly blinded. They're gone, Weber announced, relief in his voice as he watched the tactical display. The radiation is masking our signature and the plasma vent blinded their trackers. Miller remained tense. Maintain course. Once we're clear of the belt, set a course for the closest EA outpost. That's Outpost 7, sir, Elena reported. 7 hours at maximum warp. Do it, Miller said. And get someone to medbay to check on our guests. Make sure that ride didn't hurt anyone. Darius took the assignment, handing his console to a subordinate. Walking through the corridors, the security chief felt a deep sense of unease. The Zenthari had abandoned their own, then tried to murder them and their human rescuers. Vexel's discovery was clearly worth killing for, and now, the Earth Alliance was neck-deep in it. Arriving at medbay, he saw Dr. Hayes and her team resecuring patients who had been thrown about. Commander Vexel, however, sat on his biobed looking surprisingly calm. Officer Jackson, Vexel acknowledged. Your captain is an impressive pilot. He has a reputation for getting us out of trouble, Darius said, remaining guarded. Vexel's inner lids fluttered. But I doubt he has ever faced the Zenthari Defense Force. This is a new development. So why do they want you dead so badly? Darius asked, cutting to the chase. Vexel looked at his surviving crew, then back at Darius. Because our findings challenge the very basis of galactic power. And by saving us, you are now part of that challenge. Part of what? A truth, Vexel said quietly, that has been buried for 20,000 years. A truth that will alter the galaxy, especially for a young species like humanity. Analyzing alien artifacts on the remote Earth Alliance Outpost 7 was not how Commander Jack Wilson planned to spend his week. But the military intelligence officer was now staring at the crystal device Captain Miller had set on the conference table. And you guarantee this data is real? Wilson asked, looking at Vexel. The Zenthari commander, now mostly recovered, affirmed. My science team cross-verified the data. It is authentic. 7 hours after escaping the Zenthari fleet, the Dauntless had docked at Outpost 7. Wilson, dispatched by Earth Alliance intelligence, arrived soon after to take charge. Miller tapped the device. A hologram shimmered to life over the table, displaying intricate plans for an unknown propulsion system. This is only a fragment, Vexel said. We found many such artifacts at a remote ancient site. The technology is light years ahead of anything the Council races are using. Catherine Reeves leaned in, her eyes wide. This FTL drive, it's 3 times more efficient than our current models. The power-to-thrust ratio is unlike anything I've ever seen. Wilson remained skeptical. And you're saying the Galactic Council is hiding this? Not just this, Vexel corrected. All advanced tech. The 3 founding races, the Altrans, Vidians, and Mox, have kept their grip on the galaxy for 20,000 years by throttling the development of all other species. Darius Jackson, who had been silent, spoke up. But why would your own government suppress this? Wouldn't this help the Zenthari? Vexel's scales seemed to dull slightly, a sign of shame. We joined the Council 500 years ago. We benefit from our privileged status. My findings, they threatened the established order. So they left you to die, Miller stated. And when we found you, they sent ships to clean up the mess, Vexel finished. Including all of you. Wilson stroked his chin. This is significant, if you're right. The Council has been enforcing a form of technological apartheid for millennia. That is precisely what it is, Vexel confirmed. The humans in the room absorbed the massive implications. Dr. Hayes, having joined them from the outpost's medbay, voiced what they were all thinking. What happens now? Wilson sighed. Earth Alliance is not prepared for a war with the Galactic Council. If we make this public, they'll label us liars and crush us. So we just sit on it? Catherine demanded. Let them keep the galaxy in the Dark Ages? I didn't say that, Wilson said, a slight smile playing on his lips. I said we can't make a public accusation. There are other ways. Miller leaned in. What are you proposing, Wilson? The Zenthari aren't the only ones who feel constrained by the Council, Wilson said. Our intel suggests at least 12 other species are unhappy with the status quo. Vexel's interest was piqued. You are suggesting an alliance? Not a formal one, Wilson said. That's a declaration of war. But an informal network, sharing data, resources off the books. A technological resistance, Dr. Hayes murmured. Precisely, Wilson agreed. We begin with small things. Medical breakthroughs, crop yield improvements, things that look like natural innovation. Darius the pragmatist spoke up. The Council will get suspicious if half a dozen species suddenly have breakthroughs at the same time. We'll be subtle, Catherine argued. We roll out the tech slowly, focusing on advancements that are logical next steps for each species' current tech base. Miller looked at Vexel. Are there others among your people who would support this? Ones not loyal to the Council? There are many, Vexel said. Scientists mostly, but also military officers who dislike the Council's limits on our fleet. And other races? Wilson pressed. The Fraxians, Vexel offered immediately. They've always chafed under Council rule. The Nor Collective and the Tyani Republic, too. They all have brilliant minds who would see the value in this. Miller stood, pacing. This would mean getting species to work together who have, in some cases, been at war. Correct, Vexel agreed. The Council stays in power by keeping us divided. This human instinct of yours, to help a stranger, even a rival, is in itself a revolutionary act. Wilson moved to a secure terminal. I have to kick this up to high command. This is above our pay grade, but I'm advising we move forward carefully. Wilson left to make the call. Miller faced the group. Regardless of what command says, we're in this. The Zenthari fleet knows we rescued Vexel. They know we have the data. We could hand them over, Darius offered, playing the devil's advocate. Walk away from the whole thing. The room was quiet. All eyes were on Miller. His expression firmed. No, we don't turn our backs on people we've rescued, and we're not going to bury knowledge that could help the entire galaxy just because a few old empires are afraid of change. Dr. Hayes smiled. Well, that sounds like the beginning of a rebellion. A very human choice, Vexel noted with clear approval. Catherine was already focused on the hologram. If this is happening, I need to start figuring out how to adapt these systems to other species' tech bases. The door opened and Wilson re-entered, his face grim but resolute. Command is in. Cautiously, they're assigning resources to build a secure communication network with potential partners. So it's real, Darius stated. It's real, Wilson confirmed. They're calling it Operation Dawn. Fitting, Vexel mused. The start of a new day for those of us who have been in the dark for so long. Miller surveyed the room. An improbable collection of humans and Zenthari, soldiers and scientists now bound by a common goal. We need to start by making contact, Miller said, quietly. Through scientific conferences or existing trade routes with the species Vexel named. I can give you names, Vexel said. Researchers who have privately chafed against the Council's limitations. Good, Wilson said. We'll also need a dead drop system for the data, something that can't be tracked to Earth or to your people. As the planning intensified, Miller pulled Dr. Hayes aside. How are the other Zenthari survivors? They're recovering, she said. Most are scientists like Vexel. They're motivated now that they know they're not alone. Miller nodded. They were so close to the end, and now they're at the start of the biggest political shift in 20,000 years. All because you answered an SOS from a stranger. Olivia smiled. It's what we do, Miller said simply. We show up. From across the room, Vexel watched the humans. They debated, planned, and collaborated with a drive that was rare in the galaxy. The Zenthari commander felt an emotion he hadn't felt in decades. Hope. Hope for a future free from the control of the ancient races. The newfound resistance would start not with a bang, but with a whisper. But it had started, and humanity, the galactic newcomers, had just lit the match. 5 years after the Celestial Seeker incident, Elena Martinez gazed out the viewport of Harmony Station. She watched as vessels from 27 different species navigated the bustling hangar. She had gone from a junior comms officer on the Dauntless to the primary human liaison for this new alliance, headquartered in a converted asteroid base in neutral territory. "It's come a long way from being a simple mining outpost," a familiar voice said. Elena turned. Admiral Alan Miller stood there, his hair grayer but his gaze as intense as ever. He was an admiral now, but to her he'd always be the captain who answered that call. "It's hard to process it's only been 5 years," Elena said. "It feels much longer." Miller stood beside her. "Have the Fraxians arrived?" "Docked an hour ago," Elena confirmed. Dr. Reeves is already in a lab with their engineers going over the new medical regeneration tech. The station was alive with energy. Engineers and scientists from species that had recently been enemies were now working together. In a lab just below them, Xanthari and Fraxian scientists, whose people had fought 3 wars in the last century, were co-developing new agricultural technologies. "The Galactic Council is noticing," Miller said, his voice low. "Their agents are reporting too many coincidental breakthroughs on too many worlds." Elena nodded. "Intel confirms. The Alluran representative is pushing for new restrictions on all interspecies collaboration, which means our time in the shadows is running out," Miller said grimly. Vexal joined them. He no longer wore his Xanthari military uniform, but the new insignia of this growing alliance. His scales were a deeper blue now, etched with silver markings of his new authority. "Admiral." "Elena," he greeted them. "A message from our contact on the council. The rumors are accurate. They've called an emergency session to address what they're terming uncontrolled technological proliferation." Miller sighed. "So, they're on to us." "They suspect," Vexal corrected. "They don't have hard evidence of our network, but they are moving to install observation posts in all member sectors." "Spy stations," Elena translated. "Exactly." Miller looked back at the diverse fleet in the hangar. "We knew this was inevitable. The only question is, what do we do now?" Nixara, who now served as the lead Xanthari representative, hurried over. "Admiral, the summit is starting. All the delegates are waiting." The group proceeded to the main chamber of Harmony Station. There, gathered around a large circular table, were the delegates from all 27 species of the Shadow Alliance. Some were physically present, others were represented by holograms. Miller took a seat. By design, the Alliance had no single leader, but as the human who started it, his voice carried weight. "Friends," Miller began, his voice projecting through the room. "For 5 years we've operated in secret. We've shared the knowledge that was kept from us for ages. We've advanced our medicine, our agriculture, our power systems, all while trying to stay invisible." He looked at each delegate. "That era is over. The Council sees our progress. They are moving to shut us down. Today we must choose. Do we scatter back to the shadows and hope they don't find us? Or do we stand up together and challenge the old guard?" The room exploded into debate. Delegates argued for prudence while others called for a definitive stand. The discussion raged for hours. Finally, Catherine Reeves, now the Alliance's chief science officer, rose. "The tech we've shared gives us an edge the Council isn't aware of. Our ships are faster. Our defenses are stronger. If it comes to a fight, we are not helpless." "But what is the price of that fight?" asked the Nor delegate, its crystalline body pulsing with worry. "War helps no one." "This isn't about war," Darius Jackson interjected. Now the Alliance's chief strategist, he had left the EA military. "This is about the freedom to grow, the right to advance without their permission." As the arguments continued, Elena watched Miller. He was listening to every point, calculating the odds. At last, he stood. The chamber quieted. "I propose a third option," he said, his voice calm. "Not secrecy, which is doomed to fail, and not war, which will cost us everything. Instead, I propose an open declaration. We announced the formation of a new galactic coalition, one founded on shared knowledge and mutual progress, not dominance and control. Vexel's inner eyelids fluttered. You want us to go public? Yes, Miller affirmed. We send an open invitation to every species to join us, including the founding council races. We state clearly that we are offering partnership, not starting a rebellion. We demonstrate that we have outgrown their need to control us. That is audacious, Nixara remarked. Humanity is good at audacious, Miller said with a small smile. It's worked for us so far. The delegates debated this new proposal. Slowly, one by one, a consensus was reached. They would announce their existence to the galaxy. 3 weeks later, the Alliance delegates assembled on a neutral station. Billions watched the broadcast as Admiral Miller stepped up to the podium. Peoples of the galaxy, he started, his voice steady. For millennia, we have been separated by artificial walls between our cultures, our science, and our futures. Today, we declare a new way. As he spoke, a fleet composed of ships from every Alliance member warped in, arranging themselves in a massive formation of unity. We offer an open invitation to every civilization, including the founding races of the Sea Council, to join us in this new age, Miller said. We have all known what it is to be isolated, to be left behind. But we have learned that real strength is found not in hiding knowledge, but in sharing it. Standing near him, Elena felt a surge of pride. The captain who rescued one dying ship was now offering a lifeline to the entire galaxy. The effect was instantaneous. Worlds that had been marginalized by the Council for centuries immediately declared their support for the new alliance. The Council's authority began to crumble in a matter of hours. Later, Miller and Elena watched the news feeds as more and more worlds joined their cause. When you answered that SOS 5 years ago, Elena asked, did you ever think it would lead to this? Miller shook his head. I just did what was right. You don't let people die alone in the dark. Vexel came to stand with them, looking out at the starfield. Your species has a unique perspective, Admiral. Most races look at the stars and see territory to conquer or resources to exploit. And what do humans see? Elena asked. Miller smiled. Neighbors we just haven't met yet. Across the galaxy, a new era began. Species that had been taught to distrust one another started to collaborate. Technologies hidden for ages were now shared openly, curing diseases and ending famine. And it all started because of one simple human idea. You never leave anyone behind.